Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we are going to be discussing how to support our children without over supporting them. For many families, especially those navigating ADHD, learning and thinking differences, or executive functioning challenges, there's a constant balancing act between helping and stepping back. Parents often become the organizer, the reminder system, the advocate, and sometimes even the emotional regulator for their child. But eventually, children and teens need opportunities to build those skills for themselves, particularly as they move toward high school, college, and adulthood. Joining me today is Dr. Tara Williams. She is the founder of Innovative Collegiate Consultants and a tenured chemistry professor at College of the Canyons in California. Dr. Williams has spent more than a decade supporting neurodivergent students as they transition from K through 12 systems, helping them build confidence and autonomy in academic settings.
Millions of kids struggle with learning, processing, and social emotional difficulties. These challenges interfere with their ability to reach their full potential. Dr. Karen Wilson is here to help. Her extensive background in pediatric neuropsychology and higher education have prepared her for this unique mission. Listen as she delivers content to inform, educate, and empower parents and educators. This will enable you to identify challenges that kids face and get them on the road to achieving their full potential. This is Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus.
Dr. Williams, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm so glad you're here. And like I said before we hit record, I'm really excited about this topic because I feel like parents often hear messages like, don't helicopter parent or your child needs independence. But for neurodivergent children, the situation is often so much more nuanced. And I would love for you to kind of talk about kind of that healthy advocacy versus like over functioning for a child. And then and I've got tons of questions for you, but let's start there.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy for some people to say don't helicopter parent, right? When every child is different. Every situation is different. Some children might need more advocation than others, even in the same family, right? So I always say helping them advocate, but then having them advocate. So helping them and having them. So making it sort of something that you're helping them with at first and then that they can do on their own. I tell people the story of my first week at college. This was in the early 2000s. So we had cell phones, but they were not smart. They didn't do a lot. And I'm from a small town in Florida, and I parked at Florida State's stadium to go to the registrar, and I lost my car. So I called my mom and she's like, well, I don't really know what to tell you because you're 5 hours from home. So let's figure out what we can do. Who do you see? Who can we talk to? And in that way, she was helping me learn what to do, but I had to physically do it. I had to say, okay, there's a person here. I lost my car. But she was the support I needed to be able to find the people that I needed to support me and to fix the problem.
Right. And I think it's especially important because so many parents of neurodivergent kids are responding to real developmental lags in executive functioning, right? Emotional regulation, self-advocacy, and not just simply immaturity or not having that experience of losing your car in a parking lot before, right? So the challenge isn't always whether support is needed, but how to provide that support without creating dependence on the parent.
Yeah, and I think it's also when we're thinking about self-advocacy, like I said, it's not going to just be like, oh, you're going to do it for yourself, especially if students have had IEPs and 504s and things like that. That's an advocacy that's kind of done for them at the beginning of the school year in a meeting, and then everyone sort of knows what to do moving forward. But in certain situations or in nuanced situations, I think it's really important to learn sort of how we can support while they're doing it.
Yes. And I know that you do a lot of work with students on executive functioning. Are there signs that you see that a parent may be compensating for executive functioning weaknesses in ways that unintentionally prevent skill development? Because we want those skills to develop.
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of college students, right? We're we work with a lot of students in middle school and high school now on those transitions, but a lot of the students that we work with in college, how we can sort of tell this has been happening is a parent will be the one that cancels a session or reschedules, or a parent will be the one, hey, I was looking at this email in his email or her email. And we'll be like, okay, well, so obviously that's a pattern, right? That you've been doing for a long time. And we hear that from parents, right? Like when students go to these heavy transitions, like they want to have a different relationship with their child and not sort of as their executive functioner or coach or whatever, but they don't really know how to do it because they've been doing it for such a long time.
Right. And you mentioned that you work with college students, but you also, work with middle school, high school. At what age or developmental stage, based on what you're seeing, do you think parents should begin intentionally kind of transferring that responsibility to their child? And of course, like you said, it's not all at once. Here you go. It's your job now. But what would that look like?
I think the baby steps start in middle school because we're really talking about now doing this transition where there's been one teacher that the parent has had to deal with. They have maybe one learning management system. Maybe packets are given out on Monday and due on Friday or things like that, where when you're in middle school, now you have 6 teachers, you have a different schedule, they're using different platforms. And so I've even heard from a lot of our parents, we kind of don't even know how to do it when it gets to a certain point because more responsibility is falling on my child. So it's kind of, we're trying to support, but we also don't know how to manage all of it either.
Right. And I think so many parents struggle because they believe the transition happens so suddenly, right? It's like, it's middle school, it's high school, it's college. And one day the parent is monitoring everything, like you're saying. And the next, especially in college, the student is expected to independently manage schedules, accommodations, professors, medications, deadlines. I feel like there are maybe even some emotional barriers that you see parents facing when they try to step back. I know I see it.
Yeah, and I think, step back where maybe they don't know how to not be doing all those things, or even like monitoring their location, monitoring sort of everything about the child and or adult, right? And I understand it because I do think a lot of students graduate in June and think they're going to be this all new person in August that has it together just because they're going to college, and that doesn't necessarily work either because it is a huge step and socially. But I do, like I said, we have those conversations where parents are like, I just want to be a parent. I just want to help them through all the social issues in college that are huge. Living in a room with somebody else and learning how to advocate. Because there's also all that advocation that goes into the social aspect of college and being like, hey, like, don't eat my food. Don't leave the side of the room dirty, right? All the team projects that we hate. We have to learn how to work in a team because it's going to be that way in the workforce. But the parents, they want to have that emotional support, not the support of, did you turn in your assignment? How's that going? How's your classes? Right? Like, I saw you didn't turn this in. So I think that, like we talked about, there's the best of intentions and it's hard to know. But I think if we can work on that earlier, it'll get easier. You'll still be involved, right? Always as a parent, but it'll be a little bit easier.
Right. And I think that there are some parents that just worry that if they stop intervening, that their child will fail. They'll experience, internalize those negative beliefs about themselves. They won't do well. And a lot of that comes from the family is experiencing years and years of school stress and misunderstanding. And so that fear can be rooted in reality in terms of their experiences.
Well, and in that case, I say, let's try to let the student be able to maneuver on their own for a week or two, right? Like, not necessarily on their own, like supported, right? So let's write whatever they have going on the family calendar on the refrigerator, right? And then see how much they're able to do on their own. And if a week is too much, let's do it in 3-day breaks. Hey, did they get this turned in? Did they make them small stakes assignments, right? We're not going to be like, you have a midterm next week, we're not going to talk about. But maybe making those small stakes assignments so they can see where that's sort of leading to.
That's just really great strategies for families who don't know where to start.
Always small, right? And then
Yes.
body doubling. Body doubling is this, term that everybody's come up with now about doing work with others, which I know in my family, that's what we did when I was a kid. It wasn't called anything. There wasn't a computer in the room upstairs because we had one computer for one household. and we would all sit at the table and do work together. So that's also a way for the student to be doing work without the parent having to be like, are you doing work? What are you doing? How's it going? Right. I know it was different times. Like my mom used to balance her checkbook, but now maybe the parent's reading or the parent's doing something that they also need to be doing, because all of us have a million things to do. But just sort of sitting there with your student while they're working, so you know the work is happening. And also it's easier for a child to be like, hey, like, I don't understand this. Can you maybe help me explain it in a different way if it's possible for the parent, right? Or if not, at least we know there's a problem and there's not a student who's struggling to ask for help, not knowing where to go for help. And so that self-advocacy is still starting at home, but if, not an answerable question, well, let's email your professor or your teacher. Or, hey, what about Johnny? Isn't Johnny in that class? Can we send him a text? So to me, it's also learning those small steps of asking for help and not just sitting, which we know a lot of students do, staring at a blank screen because they don't know where to get started.
Right, right. And when you talk about self-advocacy and a lot of people feel like it just means speaking up, but it involves so much more than that. What does that actually look like for neurodivergent students in terms of, and you've described beautifully how parents can support right at the beginning and kind of handing over some of those responsibility, giving them small tasks, like even asking for accommodations and what that looks like.
So for me, I think for sure, as they get older, asking for help is I think the most difficult thing for all of us to do. It's not just an adolescent thing or an adult thing. Or I think it gets easier, but I don't know about you, but it took me a very long time to self-advocate. If I didn't get a grade I wanted or something, the points were counted up wrong. I was even scared to tell my teacher, like, hey, I think the points might be, because I think teachers are looked at as, which is great, as this person to be respected and whatever, but saying like, hey, I think this isn't correct. Or also, hey, I messed up. I didn't turn this in and it's my fault and I'm taking accountability. But at the same time, like, is there a way I can turn it in even if I don't get points? Is there a way that I can turn it in for feedback? So you're not necessarily asking for something that they're not going to give someone else. It's not like, hey, I turned it in late, not with everyone else, but can I still have all the points? But more, hey, like, I know that I missed this, but I'd really still like to turn it in for feedback. And is that possible?
Right. And that's really helpful because it's not just asking for support, it's how to ask for support, which is what you're kind of alluding to.
Yeah, I think everything is how we ask, right?
Mm-hmm,
and like I said, I think it's a good lesson in accountability because we're going to miss stuff in the workforce. And the thing I think that is so interesting about school and college, even though I'm a professor, I think it's so interesting that it's kind of like everything is based on, in some classes, on 3 tests your entire semester, right? Where in no job are we like, hey, you have these 3 days, and if you don't do well in these 3 days, we're not going to have you in this class or in this job anymore. So it's such a high stakes situation and so different from everything else. But, we miss emails. I know that I do. Or you have to suddenly, something happens with your family and you have to tell someone, hey, like, I physically or mentally can't do this right now. Or I'm going to be a day late on that. And so I think it's such a good lesson to learn and to just say, thank you for understanding. And I really appreciate your help. But, can I have a little help here?
Yes. Yes. And when we talk about executive functioning, and self-advocacy, there's so many pieces to that, right? You have to know that you need the help. So that's that self-awareness piece that is part of the executive functioning. When you get upset because it was graded wrong, that's emotional regulation. Can you kind of manage those emotions and then organize your thoughts so that you can ask for the support you need in the way that you're supposed to ask and understand what your challenges are, even in terms of being able to express your thoughts and ideas. So there's so much that students, particularly neurodivergent students, have to work on and have to continue to develop. And some of their struggles might be barriers to asking for what it is that they need.
Yeah, I think sometimes they don't even know what to ask for. Or, even if there has been an extension given, or like I said, a lot of it is knowing where to start and how to start. And thinking about, oh my gosh, this paper has 6 questions right at the beginning, or this prompt in whatever grade we're at. Like, I don't even know how to start that. Now I'm feeling overwhelmed. Now I'm just going to sit here and stare into space, or I'm going to go on my phone. And then, oh, now it's been 3 hours, and oh, I'm so like, I'm so shameful. I can't figure this out. What's wrong with me? Right. And that cycle is going to repeat, and then they're not going to turn it in. And then they haven't turned it in. And now I haven't turned it in. And there's all these other things that come from it. So I think it literally starts from, hey, I have this assignment. If I can't chunk it by myself, like, how do I ask for help at the very beginning? So, and then, okay, now I have it into 5 different questions. Which one is the easiest one for me to answer? Okay, now that I have this one, I can start answering. I'm starting to feel more confident, like I know what I'm doing. And from there, leading forward. But if you can't even get started to do that, it's really difficult.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where getting that support and having those tools early on is so helpful, because then you can carry them into high school and then eventually into college and university.
Yes. And yeah, the things that work when you're younger will still work when you're older. It'll just be at a different level, right? I know I still use like study skills that I learned in middle school when I was in college, and into, when I have something that's due for my job.
Right. We've been talking about, and you mentioned kind of starting this process of self-advocacy and developing those executive functioning skills in middle school. And I completely agree with you. Many parents are afraid, like I said earlier, about allowing their kids to fail. I'd love for you to talk about, how do parents know when to allow those natural consequences of not turning in the assignment or completing it late when intervention is still necessary? When do you allow that to occur? Or when do you step in and save children? Because I feel like there's a lot of saving going on.
Yeah, and I think that's a hard question. I'm going to say something that people probably don't want to hear, but we learn much more from our failures than we do from our successes. I'm a chemistry professor. I tell my students all the time, I have failed loads of things. This is not like, I think that the other thing is, I think younger children, or even, high school students, college students, look at us and think that we just had it all figured out, and it was just this easy ride for us to get where we are, right? But that failure is a part of life. So I think for those parents, like I said, let's start with something small, right? It's a 5-point assignment. And then let's say, hey, on Sunday night, we're going to talk about the entire week. So let's talk about this week, and then let's see how you do. This has to be done by Wednesday. What do you want to get done by Monday and Tuesday? And see what happens. Right? I think that's the only thing you can do, because continually, doing it for them is not going to lead them to do it on their own.
Right. And that can be tricky too, because we know that some neurodivergent children and teens experience consequences much more intensely emotionally, right? So a missed assignment for one child may be frustrating, but for another, it can trigger a shame spiral, anxiety, or complete shutdown where they don't even want to go to school.
And that's where I think too, what we used to do kind of as a society, and it's not judgment, it's just the way things have changed, is sitting together at night and working on something, right? Like all together, knowing that, okay, this is going to be our time, like from 5 to 7 o'clock. And then every 20 minutes, we're going to run around the table, or we're going to have a Hershey kiss, or whatever the dog will be here with us, right? Whatever that student needs. And, I love timers. Timers work best for everybody, but I definitely think for kids, and a reward system. Those are 2 things I think work for all of us, no matter what our age or what it is, right? So I think sitting at the table, like I said, where you can see the child's frustration, or maybe they're struggling or they're not doing it, right? So that we're still doing that intervention, but at the same time, they have their own space, right? You're not behind their computer, looking at them.
Right.
But they have the space to ask, right? Or also, I think students love, or people in general, we like choices. So let's give us that choice. Hey, we're all going to work together. What time do you think works? If we have our timer, should we set it for 20 or 25 minutes, right? If you solidly do your work for 30 minutes, what would you like to be as your reward, right? It doesn't have to be like some amazing thing. Like I said, it could be a Hershey kiss. It could be, hey, we're going to go outside for 10 minutes and walk the dog, but you're not just sitting here for 2 hours. Because I also think that our attention spans are not just built like they used to be, where we could sit. So even when students in college tell me, hey, I'm going to study for 4 hours. I'm like, you're not going to study for 4 hours. You're
That is
going
not
to.
happening.
No, like you may be at the
Right.
library for 4 hours, but let's figure out what works best. So to me, I think like that's where if we're all sitting together when possible and working together and doing those things, then you can sort of see the behavior and be able to assist without actively doing it for them.
Right. And then you teach them and you model that idea of rewarding yourself, because then when you are in college, you set that timer and then you can reward yourself with, that walk or something else that you enjoy, right? That latte that you wanted and maybe
Yeah.
need.
Yeah. And we have that discussion all the time with the students we work, like, hey, like what keeps you from doing your work? And if we can find that, like, what's a way for a reward system for that? Like, I had a student who loved to watch Gilmore Girls every night. That was like her, and as we know, with most of us, and especially neurodivergent people, they have what, like a comfort show. So let's put that in your schedule every night from 6 to 7. That's what you're going to do from 6 to 7. And then you're going to work around it, right? It's not just that hour, but that's your hour that you have this. So let's try to get stuff done before, and then let's try to get stuff done after. But yeah, I think, and also like you're talking about modeling too, right? Like if your student's like diligently working on something and they want to be on social media, maybe don't be on social media next to them, right? Like let's model something, like I said, that you need to get done. I mean, we know adults are now having those parties just to get stuff done because they're not, working on your taxes is not fun. But if you do it together, or filing, getting your passport renewed or your license or whatever those things are, like we're all struggling with executive functioning. So yeah, let's model that with our students of, hey, like I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to sit and do it because it needs to be done.
Right. And it sounds like modeling that for them and then also kind of giving them the tools to do it. It helps parents shift from being that executive functioning system for their child or their teen to becoming more of a support coach, which is what you want to be by the time your child has transitioned to college and university.
Yeah. And then maybe like, we try this process and we're working on it for, I don't know, a semester. And then you start cooking dinner while they're doing it. So there's still the support, but you're able to sort of do that, right? And then you're taking yourself out of the situation. And I just think it's also great to teach kids at a younger age to work with people. Like I said, those are your people. I never would have made it through my classes without my people, even if we weren't friends outside of that time, right? You don't have to be friends with everyone outside, but no one is like your professors or your teachers or whoever is not going to answer your email at 11:30 at night. So who is your go-to people? And when you go to study for an exam, maybe you miss something in the notes, but your friend has it. So I think, and that also helps build those social circles in college that are difficult, right? Like it's very easy to just be like, hey, I know we have a test next Thursday. Would you two like to study together? And to me, you're working on your socialization, you're working in teams. And also you've had that support from your family at home that to work while other people are working. And now you can easily do that.
Yes. And it feels like you're kind of double dipping. You're building your social skills and your self-advocacy skills. You're actually practicing it with your peers before even going to your professors or teachers.
Yeah, saying hey, like I don't know how to do number 4 on the homework. Did you get it? Can you show me how to do it? Right. And then it's maybe not as scary. Or hey, like I want to go to office hours, but I'm a little nervous. Like, would you want to come with me? And do you have any questions? And then not as scary when there's 2 of you. Or to know that other people have, like for me psychologically, other people have the same questions. They're just not asking. Instead of you feeling like, oh, I don't know how to do any of this. Nobody does. If you're really struggling, everyone is struggling with some aspect of the material.
Right. Right. You're not alone. And that also decreases those feelings of isolation. Like I'm the only one who does not understand what the teacher is saying.
Yeah. Or I'm the only one that, that shame that sets in. I'm the only one that forgot about this assignment. I can tell you from my perspective as a professor, you are not.
It is not.
You're not the only one. I always say, like, tell us what's going on, whether it's a teacher or a professor. The earlier we know, the earlier that self-advocation, right? The earlier we can help you. If you wait till finals week or the end of the year to tell us all these things happened, it's so much harder than if you just say, hey, I'm struggling with my mental health. There's something going on at home. And I know those are not easy conversations, and you don't have to go into detail. But just saying those things and telling us that there's a problem means that we can try to start working with you, which 99% of us want to do.
Right, right. And what you're talking about is really helping students build independence in all aspects of their life, right? Socially, academically, and then even preparing for the workforce.
Yes. But academics is such a big part of our life from
I know, right?
little till we're old, till we're,
So long.
5 to 22 or whatever. Yeah.
And so in the work that you do, where do you start and when do you start with students? And what does that look like for listeners who are listening and saying, wow, that's my child. They need that support. Where do I begin? How do you work with families?
I mean, we start in that transition in middle school. And then I think it's just dissecting every student's different. And so, like I said, seeing those rewards, seeing them, like what reward systems they choose, like what keeps them from doing work. And students are really honest a lot of the time about what keeps them from doing work. And then sort of as much as we can, getting all their assignments that are due ahead of time, like together, so we can start planning. So we're not waiting till the end of the semester, or maybe there's a family vacation that we want to get stuff, out in front of. Or so for middle school, I would say starting there, right? Start like thinking about that time management and organization. And then high school, you're now going into possibly dual enrollment, IB, AP. Those are totally different beasts that we're going to start working on too. And then junior year, sophomore year, you start looking at colleges. So that's a whole different time management piece to put together, because you have all these like grueling academics that you're worried about getting into college. And now we have to decide, do you want to apply to 5 schools? Do you want to apply to a 30 out of state? What's your major, right? Like all of these things that are coming together. So we start working with them on thinking about colleges and what they're interested in, and then working on that time management organization as we go there. So a lot of times we get students when in high school where the parents will come to us and they have 22 late assignments that the teachers have said, hey, just turn it in sometime before the end of the semester. But for those students, that means that they're going to do it the week before the semester ends, and there's all the things coming up, right? So when we do that, we're like, okay, how do we get one done every 2 days? Or what does that look like? What do you need help with? Why are you behind, right? And seeing there. And then in college, when I'm going to college, it would look like the summer before, we have to get your accommodation set up. Because if you don't make those appointments the summer before and you wait till August, you may not get your accommodations till October, November, because accessibility, disability services, whatever we call it, is insanely busy. There's a lot of students. And to me, that's the first thing I always say is to make sure you have those accommodations in place, because a lot of students decide they don't need them. And to me, that even if you're not going to use them, please set them up. So, and we're working with registration. We work with registration with our students. Hey, like if you know that you're not going to get up for an 8 a.m. class, why are we putting you in an 8 a.m. class? Right? Like, or if you have an 8 a.m. class, why are you taking an 8 to 10 p.m. class? That's a very long day. Or students love, I think, without thinking, I want Monday, Wednesday off. So they have classes from 8 a.m. Thursday to like 5 p.m. I'm like, you have no breaks. You have no time to eat. How are you going to study if you have a quick quiz and you want 10 minutes to? I was like, this looks good on paper, but it is so stressful. And you're talking about you have time and a half on your exam. How are we going to figure that in without you having to take your test, your quiz a day early, right? So thinking about scheduling and how that works, and making sure that if your student is going out of state, do we have a plan if they are on medications to be able to access those medications?
Right.
And then there's the coursework. So yeah, it's all the stuff that comes with it. Yeah.
Yes. And that's so helpful, because all the things that you've described require organization, planning, time management. And for many of our neurodivergent students, that is an area of challenge for them.
Yes. And that's where you're still, like I said, it's especially in that huge transition, you're still going to be supporting, but especially then with FERPA and other things, like, now they get to decide how much you have access to. But also, like maybe it's you have it on your calendar for the 20th. Hey, like your prescription's going to be up soon. Did you order it? And then if not, that's a gentle reminder that we would get from Walgreens or anything else, right? Or CVS. So, and maybe that's what we help them set up on their phone. So you're not even doing that. Hey, like let's put that in your Google Calendar on the 20th. And then let's have a reminder on the 21st. Same thing that I'm sure that we do for ourselves, because I can't remember that kind of stuff either. So.
Right. And I feel like those are things that parents automatically do for their children and their teens. And even I've seen a lot of parents doing it for young adults as well. Make doctor's appointments, make dentist appointments, medication refills, things like that. And I'm sure that there are parents listening who feel exhausted from carrying so much of the load for their child or teen. Is there a mindset shift or a practical strategy that you want to leave them with if they're listening right now saying, I'm doing all of the things. I am checking the portals. I'm emailing teachers. I am making all of the appointments and my child is in middle school.
Middle school. I think middle school is a hard one with the appointments. I don't even know if I made appointments in middle school.
Maybe high school.
But yeah, maybe high school. But yeah, I mean, I would say, if stop ordering food for them. Make them go in and order start easy, right? Maybe make it, once again, we're thinking about what isn't going to cost them academically. Try it outside of it, right? Make them more independent outside of that space. So I know I watch a lot of stuff on social media about kids who really have a struggle ordering for themselves, but make them do it, right? Like be like, hey, if you want this, or if there's something wrong with the order, teaching them how to speak up in a respectful, but also self-advocacy way. And then when it comes to school, I say same thing. If they miss the assignment, even in middle school, hey, we need to tell your teacher you missed it. What do you think the email should say? And let's have you write it. And you're supporting it from the back, right? The back end, you're sitting with them, but ask them, what do you think it should say? What are you comfortable with me saying? Because I think a lot of times too, students aren't comfortable with you telling everybody about everything. And so it's, what would you say if it was you? And so then once again, we're giving choices, but we're also teaching them that self-advocacy. And then in high school, I think definitely having them make the dentist appointments, the doctor's appointments, because then it's also thinking about, but having a talk beforehand, right? Like when you're making your appointment, let's have your calendar up, because you have practice at 3 p.m. for soccer, and then you have play practice in March for this, right? And thinking about, so that they're thinking about their schedule, not just scheduling it and then having to cancel it because they have all this other stuff in the middle. Or saying, hey, if this has to be done and you have to make this appointment, you're probably going to have to miss practice. So we should let somebody know.
That's so helpful. That is so helpful. And I think for a lot of our young people who need to see it, having that visual calendar is so helpful, because they can't rely on their working memory to remind them that they've got, lacrosse practice on the day that they just made that dentist appointment for.
Yes. And whatever calendar system works, right? I mean, I think there's a big move now to have students. I'm always going to advocate to write stuff down physically because it works better in your brain. Some students just will not do that. Like I tell my students in chemistry, when you start to memorize compounds, make note cards. Physically make the note cards yourself. It makes a huge difference. And a lot of my students, they use Post-its for everything. I'll even see in the camera, the little thing will be, I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, that's a Post-it that I had you today at 4, right? And we've taught them how to do that on their wall of their dorm. We have red Post-its are emergency. We have, yellow Post-its are not an emergency, and green is I have time. And how we move that around, make a physical thing that they can look at, that they take a picture of along with everything else. I mean, even in my work with my staff, if they need something for me right away, we have 2 fire emojis. So I'm like, okay, I know where to start. I know what's important and what everybody needs from me. And I think that that's super important depending on how they learn. If they're visual, let's make it as visual as humanly possible.
Yes. Dr. Williams, this has been so helpful. You're going to help a lot of people with this conversation alone, but I know that listeners are going to listen and they're going to want more. So if they want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
So our website is innovativecollegiateconsultants.com. We do free consultations with parents and or students, whatever the comfortability is. For the first time, we can sort of tell you about what we do with our middle, high school, and college students. In that free consultation, you can kind of tell us about where your student is struggling. And then on our website is our summer programming, which we're rolling out this year for all ages. And then we also have our social media where we do videos like this at certain times of the year and any other information. And you can always find me on Calendly on the website and my email address. So all the things.
Yay. And I will be sure to put all that information in the show notes. Thank you again for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for joining me for today's conversation. It really is an important reminder that advocacy is not about doing everything for our children. It's about helping them gradually develop the skills, confidence, and self-understanding that they will need to navigate the world more independently over time. If today's episode resonated with you, be sure to explore more episodes and resources on diversethinkingpodcast.com, where we cover topics related to executive functioning, ADHD, learning differences, and youth mental health. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus. For more resources, visit us online at childnexus.com.